Actually, this goes way faster than I have planned, so we can go home tomorrow morning at 2 instead of at 4. So that's a good thing, right? No? Nobody likes my jokes anymore. So welcome back for take 2. We go into the other sides of the services now. We go through things like virtual networking, but I'll also talk about monitoring, a little bit about the data perspective, because that's a topic we haven't touched yet. I just put this thing out of my pocket. There's some other Azure services which we haven't talked about yet. So bear with for just another, let's say, I'll drive it to 8:45, 9-ish latest. And I'll try to hurry up, and if you really are annoyed by me, just throw something at me. Don't try to share, because I can not easily dodge those, but choose are basically accepted, okay? So, all right, virtual networking. So we have, to run an infrastructure, we also need networking capabilities from both ends of the view. We have capabilities which will connect our virtual machines inside of an Azure network. We of course need to secure those, but we also need entry points from the outside. So by default, everything in Azure is fully segregated from the rest of the world. Your machine can only talk to the outside, but it cannot, no machine can talk to the inside of your Azure network by all means. So any port that you open, you are responsible for that. I should not explain you that, yada, yada, yada. So the capabilities that you have on the front-end access is public IPs, which you can statically or dynamically reserve. We can have direct VM access through Direct Connect. You can have ACL for securities on either side of the view, but also load balancing in an automated way or non-automated way, and things like DNS and so are being foreseen in virtual networking for you. So you have a VNet, which is a surrounding of all your VMs. That can consist of multiple subnets. For those who are not into IP, a subnet is a segregation within your IP range. And you can either base that on a full range or a CIDR range if you're good with numbers. I basically suck at it because I always need to recalculate my CIDR ranges. So for those who don't know CIDR, it's the /2416 behind the network IP, usually starting from 0 or another number 0 based. Important enough to know is that when you deploy devices or services inside an Azure VNet, we call them VNets, you need to make sure that you have a good idea on how the Azure Virtual Network works. Because in the past it used to be very funny that if you deployed a service and you broke it down again and you redeployed it, well, it could be that your service didn't work into the whole of your solution anymore. Why? Because some services are reluctant and are needed by a fixed IP. Now in the past that wasn't necessary, that wasn't available. You didn't have anything like static IP addresses. So that meant that if you shut down VMs, you needed to bring them up in the correct order again to get the correct IP address. So if you have 100 VMs and something happened to all your VMs at the same time, you need to VM1, VM2, VM3. You could not set the IP address on the network card or anywhere else. But we'll still don't do that. If you're deploying VMs, and you want to address a static IP, just do it from the portal or through PowerShell from the API side and not on the VM itself. It's still a bad practice. For several reasons, especially for manageability reasons, because if something happens to your endpoint, you cannot reach your VM anymore. That means that you need to download your VM, run it in Hyper-V locally, make sure that you remember the static IP and make sure that you can address it like that. Okay, just to give you the idea. So IP inside of the VNet, then we can segregate this, the subnets. You can have as many as you want, but you need to make sure that if you want to have a hybrid connection, whether it's point-to-site or site-to-site, or even a true express route, which is a fixed line to the Azure data center on several connection points within the continent or different continents, you need to make sure that you have a gateway segment specifically for that. So if you don't have that, you're basically screwed if you forget to deploy that and you don't fix your range with the gateway subnet. Why? Because your incoming devices need an internal IP address which needs to be segregated from your device IP range for security reasons. You don't want immediately an entry point into your environment where your clients can just connect to. You need a kind of a DMZ way. It's just the way it works on premise. I talked about ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute is a fixed line. It's been offered through all the telcos that we have here in Belgium and all over the world actually. Whether you're a Telenet, a BT, an AT&T or a Proximus customer, it doesn't matter, they can all provide you with one. Of course, some of these will go rather through an MPLS than a colo and vice versa because they gain more money from that. Makes sense, especially if Belgacom is pretty, Proximus is pretty good at that, of selling it as that kind of a service. But in the end, it's all Telecity Group which handle the connection points in the Azure data center. So consider it as a big tube being connected to an Azure data center, and all the MPLSs and all the colos are connected through that single tube as a fixed entry point. And that's all being managed by Telecity Group. From backend connectivity, I talked about point-to-site, which allows your PC, mobile workforce, or even just some app services, because they also use point-to-site connectivity when you're doing app service environments. That's based on a certificate that you need to maintain and that you need to roll out to your client PCs or your app service environment, and then you can have a point-to-site VPN set up through an IPsec tunnel that you have. Also, all the if you're doing site-to-site VPNs, all the major league edge devices are being supported. So Cisco's, WatchGuards, checkpoints, whatever you have in that flavor are supported. There's a large page on all the connectivity and all the configuration that you need to do to make sure that they work with your configuration of your VPN endpoint. Like for instance, some only support IKEY v1, others support IKEY v2, some need to be policy-based, others need to be route-based. Depending on that choice, you need to choose your VPN gateway correctly and correspondingly. Some only are in a basic infrastructure, only some others are living in a standard or a premium one. Depending on those choices, you have more throughput and more connection points and more money needed for keeping that alive. There's also a new concept now called VNet peering, which allows you to make your multiple VNets one large VNet and allowing you pass through connectivity from one device to another device in another VNet without having to set up a gateway. Misconception there, you still pay money for that, but it's less than a gateway. Even VNet to VNet connectivity through gateways, you don't pay the connection, but you do pay the gateway. So there's a catch. So it's a little bit what you want, how much work do you want to do. So VNet and VNet peering or VNet to VNet gateways are kind of the same achievement in the end. But for one, you need to do a little bit more work, but you pay a little bit less. For the other, you pay a little bit more, but you have to do a little bit more less work. So it's a little bit of a balance thing. The other thing that I didn't talk about is that on the edge side, and that's funny enough, important enough to know, there is DDoS protection, but that doesn't mean that you're fully covered against denial of service attacks. You still need to make sure that your endpoints, if you have open endpoints, are protected by a DDoS protection system. Microsoft does challenge your environment in a correct way, that they start tracing the attacks that come from a DDoS, but sometimes it can easily be another service. So what they do, they put machine learning in between. They actually have a machine learning service in between, which analyzes all the traffic that comes through, which is a huge load of data, a lot of telemetry, and they do that in real time. So and from that another product was born, which we can now today run in our own data centers, which is called ATA. advanced threat analytics, which allows you to do DDoS countermeasures at once too. So they do that on the edge side. If a DDoS attack comes from the inside, basically you're screwed too. Why? Because if Microsoft realizes that a DDoS attack is coming from a machine which is running in your VNet, it will be quarantined, it will be set aside. And actually in the end it will be deleted, but they will warn you. And you still get some time to do something with the data that's on there, but they will quarantine it, make sure that it gets out of order before it damages too many other customers or even your own environment. So they work, or should I say it, predictively on your environment from both ends. Yeah? But it doesn't mean that you don't need to foresee your own protection. Okay? Always foresee protection. And talking about protection, you have a couple of security measures. This is not quite new, but it's important enough to know. We used to have ACLs on cloud services. Today we have network security groups. And network security groups can either exist on a VM, a subnet, or a VNet, and not in correspondence with each other. So there's always one link to one NSG. Cool thing is that if you define one NSG for a subnet, all your VMs are automatically guarded by that NSG. So that's a good thing. So if you want access to RDP or no access to RDP, that can be arranged on a subnet level, and then you can force tunnel your RDP traffic, let's say, through the internals instead of the outside world. Or you set up an RDS gateway or something. So that's very fluently known. And as you can see, it allows you to just route all the traffic through the side-to-side connectivity. Sorry, I'm running into the image. Running through the side-to-side connectivity from the back end to the mid-tier to the front end, and down to the internet, and not the other way around. So your back-end devices don't have internet connectivity, they only go through your LAN, which is a good thing. Okay. That way you can also have DMZ capabilities, and then not only for VMs, but also for services. Some services can be entitled with NSGs too. And this is off the record, but there's some more services which are coming along, which will be implemented in VNets too. There's the rumor that SQL Server will be there, so hey, finally, and storage too. But that's not the information we're looking for. Okay. Also, ACS can be updated independently from others. That's also good. We're talking about protection. You have two other countermeasures which you can set in front of your services or other Azure services, which are called application gateway. And that exists in two flavors. You have the application gateway itself, which is a layer 7 application gateway, allowing you to do content management through URL-based routing, SSL offloading, cookie-based session affinity. So that does that for you. You don't need to maintain those. And the support for help probes, which you can customly write, and SSL termination. So that's a good thing. You don't need a separate expensive VPN appliance for that. You can do the termination on that protocol. And with that, you now also have the choice to have a full web application firewall in front of your web services or VMs, depending on what you choose. Yeah? So it's not only for VMs, you can also use it for web services or even for other services too. It uses OWASP security rules, so it's industry standard. And the most rules are being implemented. You can easily just import other rules from there out. It's pretty cool to see. It's very easy to set up, and it integrates with all the other components which are security related. Let's say OMS and Security Center and Network Watcher, because it also brings back information to that. And it's high available. It scales along. You don't have to foresee scaling for that. And it can easily be integrated with Azure Insights or with things like another SIEM that you have. So for those who run security infrastructure and you want to integrate that logging with your own logging on-premise, you can easily do that with a log integrated for SIEM connectivity. So that's also a capability that you have. Today, management is provided by either PowerShell, the SDK, or the portal. And it's pretty cool to see because you actually get a good overview of what's happening there. There's a good real-time monitoring there, and can be easily integrated with all the other things that you have. I'll show a little bit of that later on. A feature which saved a lot of services that are living today plenty of times is this one, especially in the time when we didn't have reserved IPs on the Azure side. There's this one little service that you probably all know because those guys have been spending quite some time in your offices the last couple of months. It's MyGet. They use Traffic Manager to statically maintain their IP in the time where we didn't have publicly reserved IPs. So what is Traffic Manager? Traffic Manager is routing based on failures, latency, or just plain old round robin. So those are the three flavors that you get. And you can nest those profiles. So let's for instance say that you want to deploy a website globally. And you say, I want my customers to be as near to the website as possible. You want to deploy, let's say, a website in China. You want to deploy one in Europe. You want to deploy one in the United States. It doesn't matter where. Now, if you have the first profile, it will see which is the nearest data center for you. So it will search the lowest latency for you. You don't have to foresee that yourself. Traffic Manager will manage that for you. Based upon a DNS story that you have, you connect the DNS label on top and all the IPs will reroute through there. And then you can say, why not make it fail-safe and have, let's say, a deployment in east of the US and west of the US, in Dublin and in Amsterdam, in China and let's say Korea. Yeah, okay, maybe a bad joke there, but although it's South Korea, it's not North Korea. And depending on that, you can either say, if I fail, go immediately to the other region. You don't have to do anything. It will be nested for you. And then you can still say, oh, to make sure that I got good lot of traffic there, I need to balance my load over there. So let's do that heuristically and just reroute them to the nearest device which has the most capacity available for my website visitors. So Traffic Manager will do that for you. So this is a little bit of story on when it fails, the other two will take over. So this is one of the profiles that you can have. Now, for some new announcements on networking, because as I said, it is very service bound, is this thing. Azure service, a container service now can have an SDN, so software defined networking integrated, called, what's it called again? OneNet or something, if I'm not mistaken. I always keep forgetting that. And it's just a software defined network, just like you have a VNet, but it integrates with everything else on top of the ACS engine. So that allows you for safeguarding your Docker or whatever container service that you have and integrate it with your services internally in your own network. So you don't have to go from the outside and call them in a public IP. It's a pretty cool thing. ACS engine will create clusters for you and actually manages all the orchestration, and the SDN can just insert from that point of view. Another new thing which we've seen the last couple of months, it was in a short preview time, but it's already GA, is Network Watcher. No, it's not in GA. Sorry, forget what I said. I was thinking about Windows Azure Web Application Firewall. Network Watcher is pretty cool from a perspective of monitoring and when you want to troubleshoot your networking performance. What it does, it gathers all the NSG logs and all the networking logs that you can have throughout your environment, stores them in separate storage accounts, and will analyze them for you. There's also a capability to show the topology of your entire network. And that's a pretty cool feature. So the topology is visualization. You also have networking diagnostics, some metrics to see how your performance is doing, and the logging, which is of course important if you want to do forensic on your entire environment. These are the various features that you have describing all the capabilities that you have there. So you have, you can set it on a subscription limit. Like for instance, do I still have IP ranges? Do I still have network cards available? Because every subscription has a certain amount of limits. For storage accounts, for networking interface cards, for VMs, you have limits. They can always be demanded to up-mount it, but in some cases it cannot be, so it's useful to know. But you can also just do IP flow verify. How's my flow going from IP address A to B? Since you cannot do pings internally in a VNet and you cannot ping from one VNet to another, this is a very cool tool because it will visualize you and it will show you the tracing route that you can have on an IP stack. Also the hops that you have, VPN diagnostics is all included there. So it's a single pane of management, or single glass of pane, or yes, you get the idea. It's not a pane, like AI. I'll show you what it looks like because it's actually pretty cool. I just need to make sure that I open up a private browser and I'll just go to, oh, I think I still have, wait, let me just check this one first. I think I still have one here too. Network monitor. It's a cool, bizarre little icon that you have, and you can easily missee it. It's this one. It's time series. See? Easily mistake. Here it is. Network watcher. And normally, if all goes well, you should be able to see my topology. So you just say the subscription, all the resource group. I'm going to go for this one, and I'm just going to go for this one. If all goes well, it will show me my topology. Yeah, as you can see. And this is all where the topology of your network comes along. If you have more devices, you can actually see which device is in which subnet, and you can actually have a kind of EADB look like on your network. That at least gives you the impression on how your interfaces are running to each other and how the IP should flow. Yeah? But you also will see, if there's a network security group involved, where the blocking factor could be when you're doing networking troubleshooting. Also here, which is a pretty cool feature, is this thing. So I can do packet capturing, but a security group view will show you all the security groups that are being applied. And there should be, I should select this one. Come on. Here we go. Voila. And you will see all the, yeah. I'm not seeing anything. Should be able to see something. That's weird. Oh, I thought I had applied the NSGs. Could be my visualization. But it will show you all the rules applying to that resource group if necessary. Yeah. Also, these are very handy to have by because that will actually start capturing all the data running through the NSGs and seeing where the blocking factors actually are, and it will help you analyze blocking factors. So this is a very cool tool if you need to troubleshoot your connectivity between all the services and all your VMs and so on and so on. Which brings us seamlessly to the following topic. Management and monitoring. The high forgotten factor of DevOps. People saying doing DevOps and they don't do monitoring, they should be shot twice to make sure that they don't survive. Because monitoring is an essential factor of your DevOps environment. Why? Because it can provide you with predictive capabilities, but it can also help you with troubleshooting in the end. Yeah? One of the things that are also forgotten in the management factor is backing up. We have a lot of capabilities in Azure available of backing up. And Azure is not only a management tool for backups, but it can also be used as a backup appliance. Because SQL Server, you know, that little database that runs happily in your own data center, has since 2012 a native capability to back up to the cloud. And there's a lot of more interference there to Azure because it also has stretched databases. It can offload workloads immediately to Azure VMs or Azure SQL databases, and so on and so on. Also for stretching, it's very good if you want to archive some data. SQL Server 2016 has that natively on board. But since 2012, you can easily back up your environment and your database to the Azure environment. The only thing that you need is a storage account, the pre-shared key, which you better rotate on every cycle because it's not a good thing to keep it always the same. And don't share that key with anybody, by the way, because if I got your key, I have your secret. You all know the song, I got the key, I got the secret. I'm bad in singing, but you get the idea. But if you have a storage account, you can easily just attach that as a user inside of your SQL Server. In 2012 CU2, it was only through T-SQL. In 2014, there was a management interface for that in the SSMS, so in the SQL Server Management Studio. And in 2016, it's even more better than that, and even managed backup environment and so on and so on. And you can just say backup the device and immediately put the file into an Azure storage account. If you have pre-2012 CU2, you could actually also do that. But then you just need that extra tool called the SQL Server Backup Agent for Azure. It's still supported. I think it's still floating there somewhere in the Microsoft download pages. But it's a tool, it's just an agent which checks your backup folder, and immediately when the backup is complete, it will copy the file to a storage account. Same thing, only not fully automated. It's just waiting until the backup has run, and then it will start copying, where this one will immediately copy to the cloud. Okay. Also for your VMs, there's Azure Backup, and backup exists out of two capabilities. It's file backup and VM backup. It can be full workloads. And the cool thing about backup is that it also backs up your data disks and everything else. It has a full retention policy on top of it, which you can define yourself. And you can use the same agent on-prem, on your client even, for backing up your files. If you want to have a good backup solution for your personal files or your mobile workforce, this is a good solution. If you're still using a lot of PCs and they want to maintain a backup capability and you don't use things like Office 365 or something. Okay, so these are the capabilities that you also have. Yes?
Can you also use this service for your normal backup?
Yes, you can. You can use this service for your normal backups. Just like you would backup to tape, you now do backup to disk, and then you copy it immediately to a backup vault.
Or you backup in your data center and then
yeah.
automatically make another copy.
Yeah, there's even a standalone Azure Backup Server which you can download, which is a skimmed down version of DPM, so System Center Data Protection Manager 2016, which you can install on-premise or in Azure as a management server for your backups, which can guide the normal Windows backup agent, because that's basically it. It's a normal Windows backup agent to force the backup of your workloads on your devices, whether it's a server, on-prem, in the cloud, or anywhere else. But you can also just use Azure for that and define on the machines which backups you want to take of the files and define them back to the Azure Recovery Vault. Now that's the one part, but the other part is that you can also use full VM snapshotting and backups. Just a little bit like you have in VMM or in vSphere, you can fully back up your entire VHDs to the backup vault and restore the entire VM point in time. Depending on how many backups you take, of course, you have a different backup situation. So for OOPS backups, file-based, use the file capabilities. For screw up, say full burn down of your data center, you use the Azure Backup for VMs. And it's just a choice that you have. And it is in the same blade to be found as the site recovery that we saw earlier. So for the orchestration, because it also comes with the recovery services. Yes?
Can it be encrypted? Are those data encrypted?
Yeah. So the backups themselves are encrypted. The vault is encrypted through a certificate.
Yeah.
So the question was, is the data encrypted? Yes, it is.
Okay.
So the passing of the data goes through encrypted channel, HTTPS. The data itself is also encrypted in the vault. Hence why we call it backup vault, because it's a vault. Yeah, makes sense. So you have a lot of capabilities there. And you can even, if you want to play it real hard, you can even go the full way and have some hardware appliance in your data center called Store Simple, which they bought one day from Seagate and Store Simple. And they implement it now as a virtual appliance, which allows you to have a 3-tier data system. It's actually just a bunch of disks in an appliance. It's a nice cozy device for those who care, with a fiber connection in the back. And what you can have there is that you have buckets. So if that bucket of SSDs, which are fluently fast, is on its 80% limit or the 70% limit that you set yourself, it will flow over the colder data to traditional spindle disks. If that gets real cold, so if that gets cold data, not cool data, it will be moved to Azure and offloaded to the virtual environment, which is also in an encrypted way on a storage account, which is totally tore apart, but the virtual appliance will be able to manage that for you. Cool thing is that you can deploy the same device virtually and it will replicate itself to any field office that you have. So let's say you want to have a branch office in China and you're located in Belgium, you can just set that store simple device as an appliance in your Azure cloud, make it replicate through the Azure service, and your real hardware appliance will be in your own data center as your bucket, and everything. Everybody else can just access the data just the same way as you would do on your own premises. That's a pretty cool device that they have there. Site recovery I already mentioned, not going to mention that again. So to give you an idea on the entire hybrid cloud scenarios, there's a plethora of choices that you can do with solutions that you can build. Like combination cloud platform system and Azure Stack, Service Bus and BizTalk services for the integration, also identity and so on and so on. There's choices there. Speaking of Stack, to give you an idea, platform consistency, I already mentioned this a little bit, but this is just for your reading. Yeah?
You said that BizTalk will disappear?
Yeah, BizTalk services, not BizTalk, BizTalk services. It will be more integrated in Logic Apps and it's already a connected thing. So the connectors that we today have will eventually replace BizTalk services. So BizTalk will disappear as a service, but it will stay alive under the Logic Apps.
Okay, and how long will it still
I have no idea on the roadmap. They're very shady on that.
2-3 years? Or
No, maybe not that long. But you will not feel it as a customer because the connectors will be seamlessly integrated into Logic Apps and it will be transformed just a little bit. It's not BizTalk server, it's services, so the cloud version. It's not the same thing, so not to be scared there. If you're still running BizTalk, that will still run fine, and every 2 years they will give you a new build which has an extra button, just like they did with the last one. Woo, we finally have an extra button. Oh, those guys went wild. After 4 years, they had one major graphical user interface update, one button. They were, yeah, they've been asking that for years. So there's your roadmap. I've already mentioned it a couple of times. Azure Security Center. Who never heard about this service? Don't be afraid, raise your hand. Okay, at least somebody is willing to accept it and to admit it. So Azure Security Center is a policy-based security monitoring and policy management system. And it will allow you to monitor your entire security infrastructure and alert you on when an issue has occurred. But it will also do more than that. Please, advise. Your VMs need to have disk encryption enabled. Please advise that there should be NSGs with appropriate boundaries. And so on and so on and so on. To give you an idea what Security Center looks like, and you should actually just enable it on every customer that you know, because it's, for most of the features, it's free. So there's no reason not to do it. Okay? Of course, if you want the mitigation features, you gotta pay. There's always a little catch, but the price is still okay. So if you would take a look at Security Center, which is a shielded icon, it's not this one, it's the other shielded icon, the green one. Yeah, I'm sorry, that screen is a little bit, here it is. Just missed it. Where is it? Here we are. It looks a little bit like this. Okay, so you have here an overview. They just restyled it because it used to be different, but now they segregated it into the different topics that they have. So you have a policy that you can set throughout the different subscriptions that you have. which allow you to do data collection and have prevention policies enabled. And these prevention policies can range from system updates to anti-malware assessment and whether an antivirus is installed on your devices, up until SQL auditing and threat detection and encryption and next-generation firewalls. So let's say that one of these policies is being violated because you didn't do your job correctly as a cloud implementer. You need to make sure that you tackle these things. Now, for now, there are no automation toolings available yet. You could do that through PowerShell scripting and REST calls, but it's kind of hard because you need to set a service principal because it's not implemented yet in the PowerShell stack, meaning that you don't have the capability to use the Azure PowerShell user that you log into with. For those who do PowerShell, it's login Azure RM account. Yeah, it doesn't use that user. You need to use a token that you need to get from a service principal that you need to set first. So that's the only way to do it. And then you just can invoke the web request through the Roam API, because that product is also called Roam. That's only the third implementation of the code name Roam in 4 different products. Really weird, those guys. And if we then take a look at the overview, all the recommendations that are being triggered by those policies will be visible in a very alarming way. High, very high, dead on arrival, or resolved, or stuff like that. So the black ones are the ones that are being resolved. The low ones are the blue ones, and if there's medium threats, it's a triangle, an orange triangle, what you can see. For instance, here, install endpoint protection. I get 3 virtual machines that don't have any protection installed. That means an antivirus. Yeah? So I could easily say install here on all the 3 machines. I can choose my choice of antivirus that I run in my enterprise. That could be either Microsoft Anti-Malware, which is Defender, which is also a managed SKU. Don't get it wrong. If you do Defender ATP, it's a marvelous product. Don't let yourself be misguided by all the antivirus registries, because most of the time they just prefer a certain partner and they get paid by them. It's not as objective as you think it is. They even do zero-day exploits recovery, not recovery. Yeah, they find those zero-day exploits if they come out into the wild, because there's machine learning in front of them. And this entire stack will be traced down to the machine that even exposes the threat. So it goes a long way. So you can easily just say install on 3 machines, and you can just have your choice of antivirus. It could be Symantec, it could be anti-malware, it could be a deep security agent, and so on and so on. So there you have a choice there. Also for other things, like for instance, let's say enable network security groups, it will allow you to click through this one and create a new security group from there out. So depending on the topic that you're dropping on and the policy that is violated, you get a different recommendation. You also get a different mitigation solution. Yeah? Cool thing is that if you take a look at the alerts, shouldn't be any, but if you want to test those, you can easily use the iCar file to test out an alert, so that way you know that it works. For those who don't know iCar, that's a single string that you can just put into a text file, rename that text file to a .com file, and your system will immediately detect it as a virus. It has a signature in there which is harmless for your device. It will be quarantined, and it will generate an alert trigger inside of your security center. Okay? So just activate it, just go to the overview, select what you want to do. And from here out you can also have log integration and Power BI, which I will come back into a second. So good enough for that. Key Vault, for those who want to take storage or encryption serious. I'm running through it, so I'll see you watching. Good thing that you watched, because I was almost going out of time. Key Vault is also a nice feature which you should be able to look at and really advise you to implement. If you do rotation of storage keys or even database encryption of Azure of SQL server environments, and you need to have database encryption. Key vault is your friend because you can store your key in there and you can fully rotate it with you with your Active Directory user. So that's a very more manageable feature than you have. Wasn't me. Than you have with just the normal storage account. Okay. When still talking about diagnostics, there's one more thing that I really want to show you, and that is this one, because that's mostly a feature that a lot of people don't know. It's OMS, Operations Management Suite. Who ever heard about OMS? AKA System Center Advisor, AKA Operations Log, AKA, yeah, there's 5 more names where that came from. You heard about it. Who else? Raise your hand. Oh, not, okay. Yeah, that's a long time ago. That's like the whole 3 years. Yeah. And still integrates with System Center, because actually this will be the replacement of Orchestrator and Operations Management System Center. Operations Management, OMS. No, SCOM. Operations, no, Operations, no, SCOM. Operations Manager, yeah, SCOM, and yeah, okay, yeah, you get the idea. So SCOM is the reporting engine for everything which is coming from System Center. The cool thing is that you have large log integration of all the services that you have, and if you want to test drive it, you don't even have to do a lot of effort, because you can easily. I'm going to show you. experience.mms.microsoft.com. The only effort that you need to do is type a lot. You get to this page and you can actually see, so I'm just going to fill this out. I've been doing this demo a lot of times before, so I'm a lazy guy when it comes down to demos, because everything is pre-chewed, I will use. But if it works, it works. Just say something. I'm just going to go here and grab my email here. Up we go. Phone numbers, country, BE. And then you can choose the scenario that we want to play. Actually, it fills out everything else, but it just makes the dashboard a little bit differently set up. So most of the time I go for security and compliance, because that's a very nice scenario. But you can easily just go for insights and analytics. Just click the I accept the terms. It will prompt you for downloading a PDF. It will open up a new window. And then it will show you the Operations Management Suite. And in that Operations Management Suite, you get a lot of solutions which you can connect either from Azure or from on-prem services. And one of the coolest things that you have here is, in combination with the Security Center that I just showed you earlier, you can easily have security and audit for managing inside threats, not only the outside threats. And the cool thing is about this thing is that you can actually have a good overview of how many issues there are, if there's threat intelligence, but also if you have attacks, you can also see where they're originating from, with IP address and everything else. So, and this is also a solution that doesn't cost any money. Basic solution, that is. Yeah? If you want to manage a lot of machines, it will cost you, because then you have to pay by the node. Okay? So, in combination with Security Center, and that topped by Azure Monitor, which is the log aggregator and the monitoring aggregator to create your dashboarding system in the Azure portal. This gives you a full-scale Azure monitoring solution, and you don't even have to buy a lot of different assets anymore. Everything can come from a single source. It will integrate with your diagnostic logs, it will integrate with your storage accounts, it will integrate with agents that you run on your VMs, it will integrate even with Service Fabric. Yeah. If you take a look at the solutions that you have, that's this one. You go to the Solutions Center, you can actually take a look here of all the capabilities that you have today. Like web analytics, but there's also an IT Service Manager connector if you want to implement it into your BPM and into your ETL system. Ranging from AD assessment to anti-malware assessment, Docker container management, Service Fabric, you name it, they have a solution for it. And even community solutions. I know a guy who even plugged in his band. Yes, I mentioned it, the device. I know it isn't sold anymore, but there's a solution for managing your band from within OMS. There's also a solution for the Service Hub. If you have a lot of meeting rooms with the Service Hub, it can be managed through here. You can see the service warranty and all these things from ranging from there. So this is a pretty cool solution giving you an overview dashboarding perspective, which can be reported back to your Azure portal. So this could be used standalone, integrated with System Center, or reporting back to the Azure portal. And that's basically it. Okay. Cool. What else did I want to say? Yeah, dev test labs. To jump from one topic to another, just to make up with some time. There's now, for those who don't know, dev test labs, it allows you to create images and quickly provision dev testing machines, or even lab machines for your training usability, for instance. And creating a lot of devices, auto-shutting them down or bringing them up through policies and those things. So you create a VM, you place it into a template library, and you can create your VMs from there. Now it also supports ARM templates, so you can just deploy them from VSTS into DevTest Labs, and your applications can be deployed there. But there's also now support for managed disks, which is pretty cool because you don't have to manage the storage account anymore where the disks are being managed, which is a good thing. There's also, oh, no, that's that one. So it can be easily replicated through managed disks. Yeah. There's also claimable VMs. So you can have a pool and people just can claim by pointing to the VM and say, I want an extra machine for testing purposes, or my service needs an extra machine for load testing. Very feasible now. You just say, I want that, and you put it into my VMs and nobody else can touch it anymore for the durability of the time. You can also create batch VMs, identical ones, just by the click of a button. You just say, I need 3 VMs for those testing purposes. They're at your disposal, just use them. You pay, of course, for the computing time. Yeah. You can have auto-expiration, so if VMs are running stale, say they didn't get patched or they've been running too long, you can have them auto-expire, so that way it's like, you know, the expiration date is good, throw it away, have a new one, just like we do with our food. A little bit the same thing. Hopla, time's over, game over. And you can also have now minimize a public IP address to make it easier on your RDP functions and just have them through a gateway or a router. And they don't have to pass through every VM with a public IP address anymore. You can just go through the load balancer and you can manage it from there. And just assign them to a different port, you can just RDP through that. It's pretty cool. A new thing is the Azure Deployment Manager. And I don't know if anybody of you saw this announcement at Build, but I certainly have. It was in one of the sessions, not into the keynote. So most of the people only watch the keynote. I also watch the sessions. Yes, I have 72 hours a day, apparently. Or so says my wife. The declarative model. So what you can do here is simple, safe, and secure. Just reuse your templates. It's a manager that manages your ARM templates. You can stage your rollouts and say, all right, that goes to staging, that goes to production, these things. And also the progress will be easier to maintained. So you don't have that, oh yeah, my ARM template is being deployed. I have to go click over there, go through there, take a look deeper and what level are we on, and I have to click in that level. No, this will be a tool which allows you to do that in a fairly easy overview. Yeah. It will be here somewhere now in limited preview, but if you want to go for the public preview, that will be around fall. Yeah. So if you want to write up for the private preview, I cannot show you any images because they're strictly NDA on those things. But if you want to go to the private preview, you can still subscribe to those. So aka.ms/ADM private preview, just subscribe, just fill out the blanks that you need to fill out, and they will come back with an email saying you're accepted or not accepted for this kind of load. And then last but not least, I have one final topic, Azure Data. So everything which is related to data. So today the data services platform has changed a little bit, because we now have, instead of the traditional SQL database, we also have MySQL and Postgres SQL, for those who run open source workloads. We used to have Oracle too, but it was just VMs, until Microsoft say, hey, if you're migrating away from Oracle, we give you SQL Server for free. So that was a point in time that Oracle said, no, we're not doing VMs anymore for you guys, sorry. So you have the all the capabilities like advisors, tuning, monitoring that you know already from SQL Server are now also available for Postgres and for MySQL. So it's no longer MySQL from ClearDB, it's their own running MySQL capabilities, running MySQL clusters. To give you an idea, it will provision in minutes. Pay-as-you-go pricing, same thing, secure to protect. It has point-in-time restores for up to 35 days, so those oop moments really come along. Just the way it works with MySQL, with SQL Server. So you can do a restore it in a separate database, and then just do a synchronization of the tables that you screwed up in. Yeah? And it has a deep integration with web apps, so there's an immediate link, just like with SQL Server, to that. So just to give you an idea where you can connect from and how you can manage it. So you can have a custom management app. You can have so custom management app is the things like we all know, like Heidi SQL. What is it? The other thing, SQL Workbench. You can use them for MySQL, but also the other classic things like the Azure CLI and the portal, which also has a interactive T-SQL or SQL query editor. You also have the MySQL client tools, the application that can connect to it, just the way you used to know. And these are a little bit the pricings and the SKUs that will be available. As always, they come in basic, standard, and premium SKUs. The darker the color, the more money you pay. The darker the color is, the more pain your wallet has. So it's well foreseen. So compute units, a little bit the same. Storage included, even magnetic media apparently. Local SSDs, remote SSDs. And the IOPS are a little bit the same as you have in SQL Server. Okay. To be defined, provisioned directly up. Same SLAs as SQL databases, high availability, online performance, scaling, just the works. Yeah. Same thing for Postgres SQL. Same capabilities, also the same backup capabilities. So for those who are willing to use natively Postgres, you have this choice now too. Native tools, same drawing, same calling, same resource manager APIs, also the same clients that you can use, and the same kind of SKUs, basic, standard, and premium. Again, with the same up to 4 terabytes. These go a little bit higher in storage than the other ones. Just like SQL Server. SQL Server now also supports 4 terabytes. And native manageability in programming service. I'm going to skip this one. A new kid on the block is also the announcement of SQL Server 2017. Why am I telling you this? Well, because all the features that we have been seeing implemented in SQL Server database are also in here, and they will return also back in SQL Server database. So everything which is on the horizon for this thing will also be reflected back in Azure SQL. And it will run on Windows Server, Linux, and Docker. So you can imagine that you can have an in-app SQL database in the near future in web apps, for instance, because you already now have that for MySQL, you can now have that in SQL Server too. And the coolest part is that they have now integrated R and Python immediately into the machine if you want to do data science correctly. Just a quick overview on the migration service. You have SQL Server and you have a new migration service in between, which allows you to migrate your data from on-premise to SQL database, or even from Amazon, so they claim. Hey, they always have an edge, you know. Near zero downtime. And then Cosmos. That's the last bit I'm going to talk to you about. Cosmos is was a little bit, how should I put it, confusing people. Is it or isn't it a document DB? It still is document DB, but it's more than document DB. Cosmos is actually a polyglot layer, which you will be able to talk to different kind of database systems or different database languages like Mongo, DocumentDB, but also table storage, and allowing you to handle them from a single point of view. Sorry?
And graphs.
And graphs, of course. Yeah, I was about to say that too. But good that you mentioned it. So these are all the, even Gremlin, as Patrick came to mention it. So all these data models and all these APIs are supported from out of the box. And more will follow. I had a nice chat with Scott Gu last week, and he told me that they are going to bet their money on this thing. Because a lot of people are asking for graph databases and document databases in a plethora of choice. They don't want to be vendor locked in, so hence why. So MongoDB API on top, and just write back to a DocumentDB without any hassle. It will be easy. Also, the key here is it scales. Sorry? Yeah, go ahead. It scales. It goes to petabytes of data. It scales a little bit better than we have in DocumentDB right now, although DocumentDB is already pretty scalable, but it will go further than that, and it can go up to millions of transactions if you do your partitioning and your calculations correctly. Of course, everything depends on the design of your solution. It will also come with a plethora of monitoring out of the box. And there will be SLAs on even performance throughput. So it's not only on service availability, but also on performance throughput. You can have an SLA on that, which is very important for most of our customers. Depends on what you want to do with it, of course. I think I'm going to stop right here. I think I covered most of the things. Of course, there's still some sidetracked things like Power BI, which can connect to all of the services. There's still the IoT suite, which I haven't handled. There was just one big announcement there, which was the Edge framework, allowing you to manage and dashboard easily your solutions. So, I think I kind of stopped on time. only a quarter of an hour more, so that's pretty okay. Last time it took me 4 hours. So, now, any more questions? I'm here.
Let's digest first and then come back.
Sorry?
Let's digest first and then we come back.
Okay. So I hope you enjoyed the evening. I hope you didn't find it a waste of time. I hope you found it amusing as well as informative. Feel free to bother me with all your Azure questions. If I don't respond back, it will be either because of the service desk screwed up my mailbox, or either my mailbox has exploded from itself. Okay. So with that, I wish you a nice and pleasant evening. It's still good weather outside, so if you're fast enough, there's probably still some room at the Spicht for a terrasje. And if not, have a safe drive home. Thank you.